Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World Warships for our Friday highlight, which today we're going to be showcasing the Tier 10, the Dutch cruiser. The Dutch name, in order to honor the Dutch people, I will not be attempting to pronounce the name of this Tier 10 heavy cruiser here in the game. So I'm just going to call it its English meaning of the Dutch name, which would be the Golden Lion. So that is what I'm going to be referring to this ship as. Now, this is just a short clip to get us started off here, as we're going to have a main showcase on the Islands of Ice. But one of the things that, unlike the other Tier 10 cruisers in the game, the Golden Lion is rather unique. And one is the fact that you have these airstrikes, which apparently seem to be increasing more and more into the game among the different types of ships, so on and so forth. But one of the things I want to showcase while I'm going to show you this clip, it's not only about landing the strikes, but it's also about hurting the enemy ship. So I'm going to herd this Des Moines. He can't reverse as fast as he accelerates. I want him to step out. Not only do I want to be able to switch to armor piercing and a broadside shot onto him, but I also have a battleship to my right, moving up the tent line, who just fired a salvo at him, followed up by our AP salvo, which brings him into rather close to being dead, and we finish him off. So when you're using these HE airstrikes, know that it's not just about always landing the hits, but it's also about hurting them and making a play on them. So here we are in the Islands of Ice, where this is going to be our main battle taking place here, as it's an arms race. So we're going to have some interesting opponents, some difficult opponents to go up against in this match, but we're going to make it to the end. So I'm going to read from the WoW's wiki real quick before we get into the heat of the action. In terms of the gameplay on the Golden Lion, it says she's unique. And being Tier 10, it combines super cruiser style guns and armor with light cruiser levels of concealment and maneuverability. This gives her a great deal of flexibility, allowing her to play both as an opportunistic ambush cruiser who can reach aggressive but effective positions undetected, and as a kiting cruiser using her high explosive shells in conjunction with her airstrikes to terrorize enemy ships who push into her. As such, the Golden Lion excels on the defensive, either holding key choke points or slowing down an enemy push while kiting away as the situation deems necessary. And in terms of her pros and cons here, it shows her pros being her heavily armored midsection and icebreaker bow, second largest gun caliber of all tech tree cruisers at 283mm after the Marseille. 283mm being 11-inch guns, powerful AP shells with good damage and penetration and shell velocity, very powerful AA defenses, aided by the defensive AA fire. Currently, she's got the 4th best AA in the game, or she'll be tied for 4th after the Prins van Orange Dutch cruiser comes into the game at some point, from the current looks of the AA of that ship. Improved repair party consumable with a fast cooldown, great speed at 33.5 knots, unmodified. Great concealment as well as 10.3 with all relevant upgrades, as we take some shots here at that destroyer. Cons, a short main battery range despite having 11-inch guns. Subpar accuracy at all ranges. While fire chance is decent, the high explosive damage output is very low. Increased fire and flooding duration, same as a battleship. Airstrikes have a long cooldown and slow rudder shift for a cruiser. So, those are just a brief overview and introducing you to the ship. So let's go ahead and talk more about the characteristics of the ship, and starting off with her main battery. So with her main battery, when you're looking at her high explosive and armor piercing DPM, so in terms of high explosive, with currently how the WoW's tools shows about 45 other ships, but I think there's 1 or 2 ships that are actually 2 or 3 maybe that aren't in the game. But of 45 Tier 10 cruisers in the game, she places 23rd out of having the best HE DPM and I'm sorry, AP DPM. Let me check that again. I want to make sure I said that right. AP DPM. Yeah, 23rd. In terms of her high explosive DPM, she ranks 28th out of 45 cruisers. So this ship is a bit of an odd duck, in my opinion. I mean, also it's her play style, because she's not doesn't serve best as an aggressive cruiser, as I've been finding out, as I kind of underestimated. When it talks about the icebreaker bow, like that's great, but it's softer on top, so it's possible to take large penetration damage from like 406s or Montanas bow on and stuff. So you do want to be mindful in kind of conserving your engagement. So it really does match well with how the WoW's Wiki talks about having that more defensive playstyle. In addition to having a hydroacoustic search really helps us out here as well. So that helps the ship be a little bit more effective, as I'm going to be cheeky and go for the heal buff here, as I'm confident that I can pick it up, mainly because I'm going to make this move that there's no battleship to punish me really to go ahead and push up like this, and try to get some airstrikes off here as well, but it's going to be difficult. It's a little more difficult to drop them on destroyers and cruisers. It's not impossible, but it's just more difficult because of the time it takes for it to drop. As you can see, like we just kind of land all along the back. When I was looking at the airstrike, so the timings is that it takes 15 seconds for these airstrikes to land. So it can be difficult to land them accurately, so just keep that in mind. There'll be times you definitely you just kill some fishes, and that's about it. So it's a hit and miss when we're talking about the airstrikes. But you've seen us switch between the high explosive and armor piercing here so far, and I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the main battery guns, as we're going to go ahead and duck into cover here. On one hand, you know, your HE and AP DPM aren't so great. The high explosive is it's okay. You have what is the fire chance of these shells? I wanted to check that. It's decent, yeah, 20% without taking any combat signals to modify that. And then armor piercing, I'll talk about that in just a moment. But what Wargaming did is basically to make up for the kind of bleh gun performance is giving you the airstrike. So we can hide behind an island and kill a cruiser who's just trying to run away in straight lines. So the way they designed the ship is that the airstrikes are to complement your kind of meh performance with the high explosive and the armor piercing, and you really do have to know which ones are best, whether you're switching between the high explosive and the armor piercing, best for the situation. As examples, I was just talking about high explosive, it's kind of a meh damage output that you have, but you have a decent fire chance, so then you're trying to get fire started. And then on the other hand, with the armor piercing, with these being 11-inch guns, you will regularly overmatch light cruiser broadside. You saw, like a little bit earlier, as we're kind of waiting here, just thinking there might be some Marceau torpedoes coming. But as you saw earlier, like that heavy cruiser at Des Moines, we did manage to get a Citadel on him. A lot of light cruisers, you'll just simply overmatch in the game, so that can make this cruiser rather frustrating to play. But if you get the broadsides of heavier cruisers, and battleships, then the AP really starts to begin to shine. But typically I stick more with the high explosive overall, with a combination of trying to set fires with our high explosive shells, and then also being able to try to utilize our HE airstrikes here as well, as this Montana is kind of coming back down. So we're not fully in range. So I'm going to talk about wait, there's something else I think I want to say with the game. Guns. Yes, the other thing I want to say with the guns before I talk about the airstrike is with the guns, as mentioned in the WoW's Wiki, they don't have the best accuracy. So there will definitely be times where a salvo will not be landing. You know, let's say you get a broadside cruiser, you just, you know, it might be you just kind of completely do a car wash or just one or two overpins. So that can be rather frustrating to experience here on the cruiser. So just know that you don't really play long range really well. You're kind of meant, as it talks about, that those defensive positions, like you want to, ideally when you're fighting, you want to try to, let's say, keep the enemy ships within 13 kilometers, because that's what your range is on your airstrike. So you can cycle back and forth between your main battery and high explosive. Like you would lose a bow on engagement if you're trading shots at, let's say, 14 kilometers on a Moskva, a Des Moines, a Salem. You want to kind of pull the enemy in, or hope they come running in, or simply hold a defensive key objective area. Let's go ahead and talk about the airstrike now. These have a max range of 13 kilometers and a minimum range of 1.5 kilometers. So if a submarine pops up right next to you, unless he's moving, then yeah, you can land, aim your airstrike to happen just out ahead of him. But things to keep in mind with the timings is that it takes 15 seconds for it to arrive, and I think they're including that the 4 seconds addition for the drop to occur. So it kind of flies over and takes 4 seconds for the airstrike to land on the target in the water. And then the max drop length is 3 kilometers. So it kind of spreads out all these bombs rather long. So per attack, you have 12, and you have bombs per plane, 6. So you drop a lot of bombs. Now these do a max damage of 6,800. So you've probably seen some clips where you see that the bombs have enough penetration to just wipe out a cruiser, as an example. The penetration is 37 millimeter, so it's not ideal to try to go for really thick deck armored ships in the game, because a lot of them you'll start to see like 38 millimeter and up. Especially you talk about I believe Kremlin and other really strong heavily armor plated decks. So then just keep that in mind. There'd be sometimes like, oh, like there's a flat top, let me drop my HE airstrike, and you just won't pin because the deck plating is just so much stronger. They do have a 39% chance of starting a fire, so in the combination between those and your high explosive guns, you have a really good chance of setting fires, like the fire we just set on the Z52, and he already burned a DCP. So we're going to have this fire continue to tick and maybe pick up the kill. And we do. Foreshadowing. The fun thing also when we talk about these high explosive airstrikes, don't be shy to use them on a ship in a smoke screen. Because part of the reason why I decided to go ahead and drop it is when you have a destroyer like that smokes up, if no one else can spot your planes, he doesn't know they're coming until maybe he hears the noise, and then, oh god, where are these high explosive bombs raining down from, right? As talking about Midway or planes. So it's actually like, don't be fearful to try to utilize that here in the game, because you can be cheeky and kill some cruiser or destroyer that's smoked up thinking that they're safe, and then they just end up sitting still in the smoke screen rather than actually moving around. Now our friendly Salem here just got absolutely punished by the enemy Moskva and Des Moines, so we're going to be mindful here. I don't want to get in a bow-on engagement, just like I was talking about a little bit ago. Now thankfully we do have them in airstrike range, so if they continue to sit on this island, we'll be able to get some penetration damage in. That's right now the Midway planes are spotting us, so I don't want to go too far around, because between the DPM of a Moskva and a Salem, and there's also I think a Conqueror sailing back around there, we just won't live long. And I have this cheeky Marceau who we've been having to deal with, and then our Malta, which would have been great if he would have already moved much sooner, but unfortunately that's just not the case. So we're going to go ahead and reverse and try to get our guns on the Marceau, because I really don't want to deal with the Marceau if I'm not able to spot him later on, as our carrier is really able to keep him lit up at this point in time. And I'm keeping in mind that the Marceau's torpedo range is 9 kilometers. So you can just see we're just barely outside of that for the moment. So we're going to do what we can, and I go ahead and tell Malta, well, he's not moving. So he needs to get out of there like very quickly. Because Marceau kind of, he thinks if I'm distracted over on the 6-7 line that he's just easily able to run up. But I want to kind of assert my authority here and say that's not the case, that he'll lose some hit points for running up here. So it does take our attention away from maybe helping try to secure the cap further. We are capping it, but it's going to still take a little bit as the Midway is focusing us. I could have already had my defensive AA going there. As the Midway continues to strike us, I didn't realize it was already off cooldown, so that was just my bad. I also have to be mindful of the battleship. I think it's the Montana back there on the B line, so I can't reverse back much further as much as I want to. So that's just going to be a pain, as both the Montana and Marceau are chewing away at the midway. Other thing you get is depth charge strikes, or depth charges. It's ship-based, not air-based. So that's unfortunate, because this isn't a ship you go running up on top of a submarine and kill, as we lose the Malta in the GK. So that's unfortunate. So I don't know if that's a coding thing or what exactly, but it is what it is. Now we're going to go ahead and accelerate forward and switch to our armor piercing. Because of the Moskva going broadside, because of it being a Moskva, I'm quite confident that our shells just won't over-penetrate, that we'll get some penetration there, and we do get 2 citadels. 2 of the 6 guns actually hit that close. It's kind of ironic, but we do get another citadel. So just knowing importance of being able to cycle between your high explosive and armor piercing will help you out here a lot. So we have the advantage. It's 5v4. We want to be able to take the cap, so I'm going to try to probably go dark here, and I'm also moving up around this island more because of the Marceau. Probably, yeah, going to start doing that. So we're going to move up a little further here and see if we can't be able to take the cap and then continue the engagement. Other things to keep in mind is your damage control party. Quite standard here on the ship. I'll double check, make sure it's the same action time. Yeah, 5 seconds, cooldown time 60 seconds. You do have repair parties, which is great. They're improved, 40-second cooldown time. Phenomenal. You see we've already burned through all of our heals already in the game, and if it wasn't for this being arms race with the heal buff, as we have our heal buffs maxed out, we would probably be dead by the time this game ends. So that's helpful, but as the WoW's wikis pointed out, your fires and floods, you'll get the duration of what it would be if fire or a flood would be on a battleship. Just means you tick longer on that. So the duration being 60 seconds for fire and 40 seconds for flood. So knowing when to wisely use a damage control party is really helpful here, of course, as well. So it does suck because you used to be able to take fire prevention as a skill for cruisers. Some needed it, especially like Stalingrad. So when you have those full 60-second duration fires burning, and let's say your DCP's on cooldown, you can lose a lot of health rather quickly. As we continue to be mindful here, and seeing the Marceau has gone around, so we can just sneak around to this side of the island. Other things to keep in mind, so as I talked about the AA, you have the 4th best AA anti-aircraft in the game, and I've fully built into the AA, if I remember correctly, between AA Defense and it's also AA Defense ASW Expert and the Focus Fire Training. If you do not build into the airstrike, it's a 100-second reload time, or if you fully build into it, it's a 68-second reload time between the Focus Fire Training, which has a negative 10% aircraft preparation time, and then in the 4th slot, taking the Airstrike Mod 1, which has a negative 20% Airstrike armament reload time. So I do both of those. Otherwise, I would like to have Propulsion Prop Mod in slot 4, but that's just not how it is. And so the Marceau player, we've been kind of just waiting here. I thought he would probably go ahead and try to make a move. So again, we're kind of playing this, again, at a defensive position, where if he wants to win, he has to come running onto the cap. Otherwise, we'll win on points. And we're able to go ahead and pick up our 4th kill and getting rid of him. And now we have the enemy Montana pushing in. The Conqueror still back there, full health. You know, it doesn't have a super heal or anything. So sucks for him. And here the Montana turns out to avoid our airstrike. And so we're going to accelerate forward now that we know these Marceau torpedoes have safely passed us. We do manage to set a fire from the first airstrike. The second one looking really good, and only 4,500. So we got 4 non-pins and only 3 penetrations out there. So much to talk about this ship. I didn't even get to focus as much on the gameplay, but I just tried to shout out a few things in between of why I was doing what I was doing. So we did 148,000 damage, 85 main battery hits, 40 HE bomb hits with 19 aircraft shot down. 6 incapacitations, 4 destroyed, and 11 set on fires with some citadels in the mix there on that enemy Moskva with a few secondary hits. It's definitely not something you build into secondaries. We get the fireproof and the dreadnought as well for being a tough Dutch boy to kill here in the Golden Line. Topped the team with 2,663 base experience, 19 planes shot down, and again, the 4 kills. So that Marcel player on enemy team, he did a really good job. I think I've seen him before, but TNG is generally a good clan, so hats off to him for playing well. And the damage here, high explosive shell 64,000, armor piercing did 25k, our bombs did 44,000 damage. We got actually 2,600 out of our secondary battery, and 11,000 damage in fire. I think normally you can even get more fires damage in the ship, just we didn't have as much in this game as enemy ships were utilizing their DCP when possible, and I think it was 1.8 million potential damage. And then this is what it looks like with the premium account. So all in all, my thoughts in general on the Golden Lion. The ship is, I mean, like any ship in the game, it's kind of understanding how it best plays. If you are an aggressive cruiser player, and you want to push up, claim objectives, stuff like that, this ship might not be the best for you, especially if you don't have cover to utilize like islands. So I try to island hop a lot with the Golden Lion as much as I can, as you won't survive very long out in the open. So that's why I even disengaged earlier on the 1-2 line. She does it. She's not a sniper cruiser, right? She is very much the embodiment of a mid-range cruiser at tier 10, like that 12 to 15 kilometers. So if you're decent in landing the airstrikes, this ship will probably be more satisfying for you to play. But if you struggle landing the airstrikes, then you'll probably be more disappointed in the ship with the main battery guns, with the lack of accuracy, and not as great high explosive and DPM performance, because the only way you get the high explosive guns to shine more is by setting fires in combination with the airstrikes, and then your armor piercing. You know, you have a broadside, you know, a Minotaur or Brisbane, or, you know, Austin, I don't know, cruisers like that, and then you're just overmatch and over-penetrate all the armor rather than getting a dev strike with these 11-inch guns. So I think the ship is okay to good. Well, maybe I should just say good. I think it's okay. It's a good ship, and I hesitantly say good. I think just because of I've been playing it more lately to wrap my head around the ship. This ship is frustrating depending on how a battle is being played out, right? So if the whole enemy team is kiting and it causes you to have to fight to get closer, then as soon as you get caught out in the open or something like that, you overextend yourself, then you get punished and you die really quickly. You know, if your team is all playing in the back and you're trying to set up on a defensive position and the enemy team just swarms you, they'll just swarm and kill you. So it's very much a ship that also plays off your team and seeing what they're doing. If you get caught out by yourself, I mean, you have the AA to deal with CVs, but you'll just kind of struggle and die. I think, could be wrong. It's just my opinion. With the Golden Lion. So it very much requires map awareness and what the enemy team is doing and what your team is doing. I mean, you can say about that for any ship, but it's a very special case, I would say, in the Golden Lion, and just trying to make the ship work in terms of her play style and positioning. And if you struggle to recognize those things, then I think the Golden Lion can be a very frustrating ship to play. But if you do have decent map awareness of what your team's doing, what the enemy team's doing, like the example of, you know, hey, I have a battleship moving up to 10 line. I can get this Des Moines to step out and my battleship shoot his broadside, and I also shoot broadside and switch to my armor piercing, right? So just being, you know, and keeping those type of things in mind and playing off your team, I think makes this ship work out rather decently. So that being said, I don't want to take this video any longer. If you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you subscribed, thanks so much. I would appreciate it very much. And thank you to my Patreon supporters. Tomorrow we'll do the upgrade and commander build video, so I'll go over the whole ship with you, my commander, my upgrades, and we'll talk a little more about the ship and look more at that armor scheme as well. So until next time, take care.